Hey folks, welcome to Code and Concrete, where we share the latest trends and the stories of trailblazers in the built environment. We hope you gain some insight from our wide range of topics, such as real estate development and sustainability, or blockchain, artificial intelligence, and data. Joining us today is Gene Eidelman. Gene is the co-founder of Azure Printed Homes. Azure 3D prints homes using recycled polymers and fiberglass, 70% faster and 30% less expensive than traditional methods. Creating positive environmental impact. Gene's a thought leader in areas of sustainable construction and 3D printing using polymers. His TEDx talk has been streaming on YouTube since July of 2024 and has now over 500,000 views. Gene, welcome to the show. Congratulations on all those milestones.
Matthew, great to see you. I really enjoy hanging with you around the world and look forward to this conversation.
Yeah, I'm blessed that we got to meet in Hong Kong, before going into an elevator and then again in Saudi Arabia. I mean, we've been all over the world together at this point pitching.
I think that the only next place where I'll agree to meet you is in New Zealand. That's as far away because anything else is just going to be counterproductive. It wouldn't feel right we're too close to home.
Right. Although we haven't even met up in our home turf of the U.S. So at some point we ought to do that. And maybe I'll get a tour of, some of these 3D homes that you're printing.
That'd be great.
So I want to ask, because you and I talked before the show, and I think this is a good place to start, given that, sustainability is something we want to dive into. You said, Matt, I'm not sure how I feel about the word concrete in the name, because real estate development needs to move away from concrete. So I want to open up the conversation there. What is the deal with concrete and how that's impacting, climate change and emissions?
Sure. Actually, I don't think that I said that I'm not sure. I generally am sure what I'm saying. I actually said that I don't like the concrete in the name. Yeah. Look, concrete, the production of concrete generates CO2. I mean, when people say that construction is bad for the environment, yeah, we generate a lot of waste, and air conditioning causes a lot of freon. But production of concrete, the scale that we've used concrete in the last 100 years, is what's primary reason for the environment to be what it is now. And we're dealing with wildfires here in Southern California as we speak, and floods and hurricanes around the world. So I really see direct cause and effect between concrete and environment. And now that we know that, maybe 100 years ago we didn't know when we were building skyscrapers in New York City, but now we know. And so, to continue to just operate business as usual just doesn't make sense. So that's why I feel the way I do.
And there's been a few potential remedies to construction, mass timber being one, but you decided to go with a 3D printing in a sustainable manner. What took you down that route where you saw that idea and you thought, I think that this could be a real solution to the housing crisis, which was something that you talk a lot about, but then also the climate crisis?
Sure. Yeah, when we started the business, when my business partner, Ross McGuire, and I got together, we put on the blackboard 3 bullets. We said, we want to build faster, we want to build less expensive, and we want to build with less environmental impact. And so the first couple of years, we were doing traditional construction, thought that maybe we can automate and use better technology, better hiring practices, that we can make impact in those 3 areas, and we weren't. We were not making the difference. So that's when we, and then what we really meant when we said less environmental impact, we just wanted to get rid of all the trash that our construction sites generated. There's this huge dumpster at every site, and I honestly felt that 50% of what I buy at Home Depot ends up in that trash can, because you can't order exact materials. It's just on and on and on. So when we started looking at options, this was 5 years ago. There were wide circulated videos of 3D printing with cement or concrete. They still are, but we didn't like it for a couple of reasons. it wasn't meeting our other two goals. It wasn't really meeting any of those three goals. It wasn't any faster because 3D printing of cement, they bring large format 3D printers to site. And if it's too cold, too hot, too windy, you can't work. That was our issue. That's how you build traditionally. You can't work such a big percentage of the time. Less expensive. It kind of was making sense during COVID when lumber prices went up, but now lumber prices lower than they were pre-COVID. And so cement is just an expensive material to build, and you still need to do foundation, you still need to do roof, you still need to do all the interior walls. So the cost-wise, it wasn't making a difference. And then, of course, we just talked about environmental impact. So we wanted to focus on building in a factory, and 3D printing in the factory only made sense with a lighter material. So we kind of got to it by looking, what can we build in the factory transport? Again, cement wouldn't make sense. That got us there. And then, we looked at, the polymers were used in other fields already. So it wasn't like inventing just a totally new, now we patented the process and designs for our industry, but it was polymers were already used in 3D printing for automotive, for aerospace, a lot of seats, a lot of seats in airplanes are 3D printed, a lot of interiors of cars and planes are 3D printed. Our newest hire at Azure is somebody from Relativity Space, and they launched first rocket that was 3D printed. So the material was already used in other fields. It was not a big jump. Our biggest challenge was how can we build tall structure? Because, again, when you think about all the things I've talked about, they were generally small, structure that up to 4 to 5 feet. And when they were in larger structure, they would always be kind of glued together, made together. So that was our biggest challenge, was to figure out the way how to print a structure. We wanted to build a taller, higher ceiling. And so once we figured it out, it kind of made natural sense. But we kind of got to it. We are not 3D printing engineers. We're construction guys. So we looked at what can we do to, that can be permitted, that can be insured, where there can be customer acceptance, and kind of fell into this, like a lot of inventions. That's how a lot of inventions come together.
Right. So if we were to look at the life cycle of one of these 3D printed homes, because you're using recycled materials, generally, where are those materials coming from? How do they get to one of your manufacturing plants, might be the right word, or printing plants? And then from there, how do you deliver this to the customer?
Sure. Yeah. So we work with people who produce pallets for us. So we develop the formula, and there are lots of companies, a lot of industrial companies, chemical companies that make pallets. You give them the formulation, and they will combine together. So quite honestly, I don't even know where they get the recycled material. I just know that they certify that it's recycled. Some of it is from industrial recycling. So when people make plastic bags, there are a lot of leftovers. So some of it is industrial recycling. Some of it is consumer. We use PETG. PETG is a material that's used in food containers and water bottles. So of the total 45 million metric tons of plastic we make in this country every year, 20% of it is PETG, so there's plenty of that. And of course, all the water bottles you and I collect and separate and put in a trash can, only 5% of that gets recycled. So it's like we waste more energy recycling the material that we put in a trash can than if we were just to put it in a landfill. So anyway, we basically work with companies that get us the pellets using our formulation. And that's kind of how it works. There's plenty of it. There is that material is in Europe. We started out with getting it all the way from Europe, which didn't make sense, but now we get it from the US. And really materials, we thought we were getting into, initially we thought we were getting in construction business. Then we said, all right, it sounds like a 3D printing business. we now say if we want to define what business we're really in, it's in material research, material science. Because while 3D printing, we use industrial robots. I mean, we have some innovation in how we make these taller structures, but really it's in the material science where the real innovation is happening, because we want to have material that will withstand hurricanes, fires, earthquakes, winds, snow, and the more severe weather climates we have, or the more severe, it's not just going to be in certain areas. We have to continue to work on this to make a material that can withstand all of this weather-related crises that we've caused ourselves. So,
And Azure prints these in your own factories. You don't go on site to 3D print and move robots to location. Why did you choose to develop, I guess, in-house and then transport that? And what role does logistics, has that been challenging as a startup to try to manage all of that?
Yeah. So actually, you're right. That was a question. So our units are very light. They're much lighter than your traditional modular or prefabricated construction. And we print it in our factory and then finish it in our factory. It's 95% finished. The only thing that needs to be done is attach the foundation. And we have units that attach the foundation, go on the flatbed truck. Usually our modules are 20 feet long. The flatbed trucks are 40, 50 feet long, so we can put 2 units on the flatbed truck. We also make units our own wheels, and there your Ford F-350 can pull it. So we have one in our warehouse, so if delivery is not far away, we just bring it ourselves, but there are lots of people who have a truck. So the transportation cost have come down quite a bit from COVID, and our goal is really, in terms of to get the product less expensive and more sustainable, is to establish a factory in every time zone. So our initial facility is here in LA. We're opening in 2025. We're opening a factory in Colorado. We were recipient of a award from the state to bring more manufactured housing there. And we're looking to also establish factories in Midwest and East Coast so that we can have factories that are closer to customers, can do more customization. So if we were to have a factory in Ohio, every unit produced would be to have a roof that can withstand big snow loads, right? Or higher insulation values. So we can customize better, we can be less expensive. But for right now, we've already delivered units in Arkansas. We're shipping units to South Carolina before the end of this month. And the shipping costs have come down because of oil prices, gas prices come down, and there is overcapacity in the trucking industry. But still, as time goes on, around U.S., we want to have factories close to consumer, and then internationally, by 2026, we see establishing some factories around the world so that we can bring this to the world.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but you have several different models of the fabricated home. So you could offer a little bit of customization to a customer where they might want maybe different sizes or different finishes, and then you can deliver those. And I think at one point you even mentioned in a conversation that these are able to stack on top of each other. Is that true?
No, they stack right now horizontally.
Horizontally,
so
okay.
We can create up to 1,700 square feet home. But at this time, we only deliver only one story. We're doing some additional testing to be able to stack them vertically. And again, there is just, right now we have approval for residential housing, and residential is usually, it's 5 feet apart, right? When you stack them on top of another, they're going to be right on top of each other, and of course, right next to each other. I used to be a multifamily developer, so from the very beginning, we've been thinking about how to do this for multifamily housing. But we just need to do a little bit more testing. We think that by the end of 25, we will get the approval to be able to do that as well. So, in other parts of the world, like Hong Kong, where I'm at, Singapore, Japan, some 25 to 50% of the housing is produced in factories. In the US, it's still only 4%. Why? It's like, why is this happening? it's almost like we're doing it onto ourselves. Yeah, to build, it's like if we were to build cars in front of every garage, it would be very long and very expensive, right? So we're doing this. We figured out that in 100 years, it used to went from a horse in a buggy to building cars in different garages to factories. Housing never made that leap. 100 years ago, the carpenters was hammers and nails were building homes. Today, majority of construction done exactly the same way. So yeah, I think there are some very positive wins, that are helping us. Just the whole realization by many by developers, by the states and local governments that you can build less expensive and faster in factories, and we intend to take advantage of that.
Do you think that this lag of productivity and efficiency has contributed to the affordability crisis that a lot of homes are facing?
Absolutely. It's kind of a no-brainer. You continue to do it with the way we've been doing it for a long time. And now we're doing this interview a few weeks before inauguration of a new administration. If we will see deportations at levels that our president-elect is talking about, we will see labor shortages like we've never seen before. Already, a lot of construction labor is immigrants. Some of them have come here illegally. And people are already leaving in anticipation of what's going to be happening. So labor shortages will make housing more expensive and longer to produce. So it really is, it's going to be kind of, in addition to all the other issues we have, it's going to get even worse.
So if traditional labor required to build houses as we currently do it, if there's a shortage of that, we could see an increase in prices. But if the industry made a transition to the prefabricated and factory-made homes, fundamentally, that would be a way to combat potential increases in price. Okay.
Yeah, exactly right.
Do you think that, I would say between your crowdfund success and your publicity, that affordability and sustainability are resonating with a lot of people? I want to ask, on a global stage, though, where have you seen the most interest? Of course, you're U.S. based, but do you think that the politics element, the politicization of sustainability holds back potential for the industry?
No, not at all. We are, despite of the politics, consumers and developers are very sustainability focused. That is not going to change. Especially younger consumers and people who think. Smart consumers are just saying we cannot go on the way we've been doing because we're going to leave the world to the next generations in a very bad shape. So we see a lot of just a consumer-driven or customer-driven interest in this. And around the world, it's the same thing. It really is more driven by shortages and by, earthquakes in Turkey destroyed over 250,000 units of housing. This has been now over a year ago, and less than 10% has been rebuilt. Maui fires, 2,200 homes a year and a half ago. Less than 10% has been rebuilt. Ukraine lost a quarter of its housing stock. The numbers are 225,000 homes and 25,000 apartment buildings. There is going to be peace in Ukraine. There's going to be need for rebuilding. Gaza. So war conflicts and natural disasters are causing such a disruption and creating such a need for fast, inexpensive, and sustainable solution that's what drives it. It's on one hand this disasters where housing is being destroyed, and on the other hand, just individuals and businesses who are in Maui. Plastic They have no landfill left because Maui is very mountainous. They burn plastic. You talk about bad environmental impact when when a lot of third world countries throw plastic in the ocean. It's even worse if you burn plastic. You talk about holes in the atmosphere. That'll do it, right? So in a lot of places is just out of control, and reusing it for something purposeful is a solution.
Right. It certainly makes sense. And if you're seeing the consumer demand, I guess what is the next step to see mass adoption, or at least an increase in, the percentage of American housing or global housing that's produced in this format?
Yeah. And it's really the adoption is happening. I'd love to accelerate it because people are still kind of worried about living in a plastic house, right? So our best customers, and a lot of them last year, over 50%, were glamping resorts. What I love about it is now when people say, "Well, can I see one of your units?" I mean, up to about a year and a half ago, I said, "Well, you have to come to our factory, right?" Now I can say, you can go to Arkansas, you can go to San Diego, you can go to Big Sur and stay in one. And when people stay in one and realize that on the inside, it's like any house. On the outside, it's beautiful. It looks great. And then it's also very, they're very well insulated. So they're very comfortable. They're very nice finishes. So it takes people to really experience it. And so we've been making a big push to have more units in the glamping resorts, camping sites around the country and around the world, because once people stay in one, then they feel much more comfortable about it. So, that's kind of our biggest issue. So the more, we now have some ADUs out. So people who want an ADU are more comfortable. We have in Colorado, we're working with a developer who wants to build a 100-unit subdivision. Yeah, again, lots of developers say, "Well, I'd love to see one." Once you get out, even smaller subdivisions out. So it's really just people. Look, early adopters is a very small percentage, but they're usually the most enthusiastic promoters of innovation. So it's been a lot of fun to work with early adopters around the globe. When I love when people come to our factory and get excited. I mean, it's like you can just see their eyes are racing in their head. They can see what they can do with something like this. For example, we have a customer who has 7 different glamping resorts. They have one in Montana, one in Arizona. So he loves, like taking our unit on wheels and have it in Montana in the summer, have it in Arizona in the winter. And he can just transport it back and forth. All kind of unique, very vertical centric uses of it. I couldn't even, again, when you as an entrepreneur have a vision, our vision was affordable housing. When we started the business, somebody told me glamping. I didn't know what it means. It's lack of English, but it's also like, I'm not a camper. I didn't know what glamping means. And on and on and on, where we just signed an agreement with one of the cities in California to build a village for the homeless. They're actually the city folks are coming to our factory today. We have 75,000 homeless in LA, and this is before all the people who lost their homes in Palisades. It's unacceptable. We're the richest country in the world with all the innovation, and have people. I have right here on the street. People live on the street. And it's okay when its weather is nice, but we've got 80-mile-an-hour winds. It's not very safe for many other reasons, drugs and alcohol and now weather, to be on the street. And here LA is planning to host World Cup in 2 years and Olympics in 4 years. It's an embarrassment to bring people here from all over the world, and where you can't walk on the street, you're forced to step over people. That's crazy, unacceptable.
That's really interesting. Do you think that more governments, I mean, you're talking to municipality now, do you think that more local governments should consider this as a solution? to homelessness?
Yeah, Matthew. The reason we have this crisis in LA is it costs, if the government continues to do what it's been doing up to now, it costs $800,000 per unit to create a unit for the homeless, and it takes 6 years. To house 75,000 people at that cost and that time is impossible.
Right.
We spent in LA $2 billion a year for the last 2 years and reduced housing by 300 people, reduced homelessness by 300 people. We just passed a law that will increase sales tax by another 0.25%. That's $1 billion a year. We'll have $3 billion a year. No progress is being made. Our units cost $20,000 per unit. So it's like, are we going to continue to think that we're going to solve the problem by doing exactly the same thing we've been doing, and that doesn't work? City owns parks, all kind of land that's underutilized. And the argument before, well, we don't want our parks to be used by homeless. Our parks are being used by the homeless. Our streets are being used by the homeless. So throw everything you have and say, let's house people, and let's do it. Yeah, this is not going to be luxury housing, but it's going to be something that people can be proud to call home. It's going to be well insulated. It's going to be a place where people can get mental help and drug abuse help. A lot of that is what's driving homelessness, but you can't do it if you're people on the street and police department chases them from one. LA chases them to move to Culver City, and Culver City is chasing them to move to LA.
Right.
That doesn't make sense. So, yeah, it's the numbers for the homeless increased last year from 650,000 to 770,000, 18% increase. And it's undercounted. We count homeless in January, which is, it's like, in January, people find places to when it's cold.
Right.
If we were to count homeless in the summer, we would have over 1 million people in this country.
Wow.
That doesn't make sense. And we have a solution,
Yeah, well, it sounds like you're 40 times more cost effective than what the government is currently deploying for housing solutions.
Yeah, this agreement we just signed with the city is 60 units. We signed it today, even though they have a site that needs to be permitted, developed, but by September, people will be in, right? And so 9 months later, it takes us, one of those units for the homeless, it takes us 5 days to make. So wow. If they were to cut out some of the permitting requirements, we're still permitting it as a affordable housing. It's a crisis. It's like, in the crisis, you cut out all that regulation and red tape. So, it's kind of a no-brainer. And, but, I just have to continue I get madder and madder when I talk about this. Because just normal conversation doesn't get any, it doesn't even make headlines anymore.
Well, we keep saying that it's a no-brainer. I guess where are the bottlenecks? Where's the resistance? Is it zoning policy? Is it just not enough resources for you to scale efficiently? Is it transportation, logistics? How do we take this to the next level?
The resistance comes from lack of leadership. It's... I have examples, again, the city we're working, we can't make this announcement yet, but you have mayors, like San Jose is a great example. You have a mayor there who is like, wants to break, he is actually making a difference. So it's really lack of leadership, because all the funding is here and knowledge is here, right? So people who are visionaries, I'm convinced we're going to solve this problem, but it'll take different level of leaders. It's not just, needing more money to solve the problem. It's leadership. The same thing in Colorado. We're working in the town of Bennett, where the facility is going to be, our factory is going to build, and we had mayor, city manager, and deputy city manager fly down here, take a look at it, and they're now pushing the developer to make this happen. So it's really, in every instance, it's leadership. it's local leadership. It's Colorado. It was governor who pushed this initiative to allocate $40 million to attract 8 companies like ours. And now, I have a call later today with somebody who is on state team to help us with generating the demand and figuring out how can we make. They adopted ADU law last year. That's just as good as California. So in every instance, it's leadership that will make a difference.
Do you have a plan to continue that education for leaders? Because I mean, maybe that's what it is, just awareness of these concepts. Do you think that this is something that should be lobbied? People go into
it is being lobbied.
politicians.
And, look, my effort, at least last year, was to come out of obscurity. I did 26 talks. We were at 20 different conferences. I did over a dozen podcasts. In the last 7 days, you're my 3rd podcast. So I'm going to accelerate that. And of course, you will have the most viewers of anyone, right? But my point is, it's more of the same. We're getting out of obscurity. We're getting the messages being heard. We're seeing more states and cities looking at Colorado initiative and trying to replicate it. I'm responding to another RFP from one of the states on the East Coast. So things are moving. They're not moving as fast as I'd like, but I have a lot of energy, and I have a big mouse. So as long as I'm going to continue to talk and we're seeing increased number of orders. So all of this talking, I think, is helping our pipeline. So the way we're growing around the U.S., we're looking for we basically want to replicate what we've done in Colorado, where the state or local government can provide the funding to establish a facility. And then I work on demand. And when you have demand and funding for facility, that requires us to raise less money. And then internationally, I look for joint venture partners. So after a trip to Saudi Arabia, I spent a few days in UAE. I did business in Abu Dhabi and Dubai before. Had very positive meetings. When we were in Hong Kong, I flew down to Thailand. I have some friends there. And on and on and on. We're just, I'm convinced that in 25, 26, we'll spread around the country, and 26, 27 will spread around the world, because what we have is something that's badly needed. And I'm sorry by all the sirens. I don't know if you can hear them. Sirens outside and my phone alerts about the fire. So apologize for that. Been a crazy day.
Well, it hasn't come through, but it is my pleasure to give you a platform to talk about these things. And that's why even something as simple as, let's look at the name code and concrete. Now, code is an element here. You're designing houses and you're printing them, but then concrete, how do we actually address that? Because I've received a lot of compliments on the name, but that's why I found it so interesting when you said, well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about what's actually going on, because if people aren't familiar with some of the struggles, and it would be hard to recognize the waste or the fallout of the construction industry if you're not in it. And even if you are in it, so much of this waste is displaced. It becomes someone else's problem, and it's not relevant to us because we don't immediately see it. So these sorts of, in-depth conversations about what's going on in the world, and hopefully, our listeners hear that and think, well, I'm going to become an advocate for more sustainable, more affordable housing. And we have listeners all over the world, which is great. I mean, I think advocacy is a huge part. And you had mentioned earlier that in some ways it might just be a generational thing. And I think that each generation becomes a little bit more activist than the one prior. Now, activism sometimes is being loud and not taking action. But if we can get people to deliver on their proposals and promote this sort of construction method put their money where their mouth is, then we'll see real change.
Yeah. Well, look, there are a lot of materials you can use instead of concrete. You mentioned timber. I get all kinds of ideas you can imagine to use, from hemp to you name it. There are other materials that can be used to replace concrete. Even in our buildings still need a foundation, but we thought about it. Doing a perimeter foundation or like raised foundation will use a lot less cement. And so we encourage people not to do slabs, but to do just raised foundation. A lot less cement is being used. It's actually easier for us because then we don't have to be as precise. Our plumbing and water connection is under the building, so we don't have to be precise to match where the connection is in the slab to what we're doing. So yeah, you should change the name of your podcast. People who love it don't know what they're talking about. But it really is. When you don't have, cement was an incredible innovation. Like, we wouldn't be able to build the high rises, and it was absolutely necessary. But now there are other solutions. And I also don't necessarily believe that innovation has to be more expensive, because in the end result, we deal with real estate developers, and you can talk all about your innovation sustainability. If it's not less expensive, they're not going to do it, right? So cement is also more expensive. It uses a lot of energy to make it. So I'm really, I'm hoping to see the world that uses a lot less of it. And my friends who are 3D printing with cement are not having an easy time, just because the whole purpose, the whole way of bringing equipment to the site. First of all, you need to have large sites, right? Look, we were considering it in the beginning, and I was just lucky to go to a site that had 3D printing, and they were idle because it was raining, and you can't print in that. You can't control the weather. And that's when I said, well, how is this different from what I have now? That was my goal, was to eliminate the downtime. We realized how much downtime our guys had during COVID, when our customers were sitting in their houses and filming my guys working or not working in their backyard building an ADU. It's like, oh my gosh, no wonder we're not moving, because between all the food trucks pull up and everybody goes, they pull up a couple times a day. And all the cell phone conversation they have is non-business related. So it's not just takes long, it's unsafe. It's just totally unproductive. It was really during building ADUs during COVID, and customers sending us videos of our teams working on their sites, when we said, we got to do it in the factory. It's just, this ain't working. This is not the way to get things done.
You mentioned high rises. Do you see this technology or these practices bleeding over into commercial properties as well?
Yeah. It's we talked about going vertically. So if we can make units that can become nested into the, it's already being done, not just as our materials. So a lot of medical facilities or hotels are using prefabricated construction, where they do kind of a steel frame and then just nest units in. So that would be the way to do this. But yeah, I'm hoping that we can use a lot less cement. We, as a society, a lot less cement to get things accomplished.
And on a commercial property, is the incentive still affordability or just the sustainability aspect? Because I imagine on a large assets, we could be talking tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of square feet. That is a lot of transportation.
Yeah, no, it's in addition to those two things, it's speed. While the biggest risk in real estate development, you're in that business, is you start a project when interest rates are high, you finish the project, the interest rates are I'm sorry. You start a project when interest rates are low. If it takes 2 years to develop it, when you're finished, the interest rates are high. Your economics is out of the window, right? And then all of the interest during construction is also high, so your cost goes up. So think about this: if you can build the foundation and the structure at the same time as modular manufacturing can make units on the inside, how much incredible time saving. So time saving, cost, and sustainability. And time saving ultimately means cost saving and less risk. So, I really think that that's the way it's going to go. It's already happening.
Mhm.
I mean, Singapore and Hong Kong, some of the best regulations for modular construction to go in multifamily build or multi-story buildings. Dubai has some of the best regulations on 3D printing. When I was in Dubai after a Riyadh visit, I been communicating with the chief building official of Dubai municipality, and he realized I was there just on the weekend. He came close to my hotel to meet for coffee at 10 o'clock in the morning on Sunday. Can you think any city in America that somebody would do that? And so when I asked him the question, how do I set up a company here? So let me have your phone. As we were having coffee, he almost set me up. I said, wait, just a second. It was a theoretical question, but he took a phone and said, you don't need a partner. I can set you up right now. And then, when I told him that, we talked about materials, and I said, Texas, every time we come up with a new material, it costs us close to $250,000 to get approval. He said, don't do that. He said, ship the units here for under $5,000. I will test your material.
Oh, wow.
So that's just an example, the Sheikh Mohammed, the Prime Minister of UAE and the ruler of Dubai made an announcement that by 2030, 25% of the buildings he wants to be 3D printed.
Oh, wow.
It's going to happen. I just have no doubt that it's going to happen. So that's back to leadership. It's like if somebody has a vision and somebody has resources, it's going to happen. So I'm convinced that we have the resources and technology here in the U.S. We just need leadership at all levels to make it happen.
That was a really good point about being able to shorten timelines because you're producing or you're performing two stages of the construction process simultaneously. You're breaking ground, but you're also formulating the rest of the building and then moving it on site as opposed to just trying to do one after another. And everyone knows that timelines and trying to meet those timelines and stay within budget are the biggest issue for real estate development projects.
Timelines, safety, getting all these guys up and down these high-rise buildings. How many people lose their lives or get injuries doing that? So timeline, safety, quality, nobody's taking pictures like those. My customers during COVID, nobody's taking pictures of every step. In our factory, everything we do is filmed. We observe the whole process from our office that's in the mezzanine. So many issues you can solve by this technology.
What do insurance companies think about 3D printed from recycled materials?
Yeah, we have to meet the same permitting requirements that any construction building. So insurance companies look at us just as any approved product, So we basically the same fire ratings, the same insulation. In many instances, we exceed what's required. So insurance companies really rely on permitting. If it's been permitted, it should be safe, right? And that's another big advantage of doing in the factory versus on site. By being modular manufacturer in every state, it's the state government that's my regulator. So, I need to satisfy 50 regulators in the U.S. And a lot of the states, 20 of the states, have now, because they have such shortage of housing, they've outsourced the approval process and inspection process to private companies. So I can get plans approved in 2 weeks versus 6 months. And then I can have inspection with a 48-hour notice instead of just relying whenever somebody shows up on my site. So again, another advantage of doing it in the factory is to work with much streamlined processes that states have implemented versus dealing with 20,000 local building departments out there.
Well, to sort of shift topics into, talk about you as a founder. What's it been like going out, starting a company that's innovative, requires early adopters? You have to sell that vision. You just closed a crowdfund. What's that journey been like? And I guess if anyone's out there thinking about following in your footsteps and driving change, what advice do you have to them?
Yeah, it's been challenging, and this is my fourth startup, so I've been in this rodeo before, and it's amazing how every time, and this has been done over the last 3 decades, every time you think it'll get easier, and it gets hard. It's still painful, only different kind of pain. So it's really being flexible. If you were to tell me 3 years ago that we would use crowdfunding, I would say that's crazy. That's impossible. That's not the way we're gonna go. But in the last 2-3 years, it's been so hard to raise money from VCs. And so somebody suggested crowdfunding. We didn't like hearing when some crowdfunding platforms spend 1/3 of their fundraise on marketing. And I just thought it would be a huge waste. So we talked to larger platforms and said, look, I don't want to spend money on marketing. I'm going to generate enough publicity where, in communicating to your investors, I'm going to have news. I'm sure we've generated just a ton of PR. Partially because of our innovation, but partially because we're in different verticals. So, between affordable housing, glamping, housing for the homeless, crisis prevention. So we generate a lot of publicity. And so, and people say, oh, crowdfunding, your cap table is going to be, VCs will not like it. Not true. We've done 4 campaigns. It's like 4 entries on our cap table. We've done them with SAFE, so it's like convertible debt. It's what's been great about crowdfunding is we're getting investors, but we're also getting customers. A number of the people who bought our products bought the units or becoming our affiliates, where they're selling our units because they now understand what's going on. When I was in Riyadh, I just like you do, I put a LinkedIn post saying so I did a post, I'm going to be in Riyadh in 3 days. One of the investors, small investor from Spain who invested in us 2 years ago through Republic, emailed, said, Gene, I'm also in Riyadh on a different business. Let's get together. We got together in the lobby of that Hilton. He actually lives in Japan. He married a woman who is half Japanese, moved there, very experienced founder. He had 3 exits in the hospitality industry. He wants us to come to Japan. He wants to use our units. I would have never, again, I've been to 66 countries. I have not been to Japan. But he wants me to come there in October, because he has customers. He himself wants to develop units. So crowdfunding has lots of advantages. And once if you can raise money with crowdfunding, you can show so we raised like $2 million from 2,000 investors. But we now have, we've raised another $3.5 million from angel investors. And some of them are small VC funds. And they like the fact that we have such a diverse group, and some of these investors are $25,000, and our biggest investor put $1.2 million. It's a family office. So it's like with any startup, you have to be flexible. You have to be flexible in how you're going to raise money. With product, what's been unique about this business is I've never been involved in anything where my first 3 startups were in real estate development, childcare. I developed a chain of corporate sponsored childcare centers, and charter schools. In every instance, I built something and then I tried to sell it. That's hard. With Azure, we 3 years ago printed our prototype and put an image on Facebook and started getting deposits. I've never seen that. I've never been involved in a startup where you can really feel true product market fit. I've been through a couple accelerators and enough talks where people talk about product market fit, and you can kind of mentally you can understand it, but you cannot feel it when somebody talks about it. In Azure, for the first time I feel it. I feel it because what product market fit is. It's like you're just telling what you're doing, people coming with their own idea how they can use your product, and they have to have it. So that's been the most incredible part that I could have never envisioned. And all the normal things. Having a good partner is huge, and having somebody who's very different from you. I've done a startup with my brother, and I love him. But we, at the end of every day, our employees were concerned that we're going to kill each other. And we're just having an argument, in Ukrainian or in Russian. I have a partner who is very different. He's an engineer, he's a designer, he has an incredible eye for, I give huge credit for all the designs. He, in his spare time, updating our website. We just launched our new website, which is like unbelievable. I could have never done it. He really, I guess I'm getting a little bit older, so I'm not as focused as he is on well-being of our team. And during holidays, really, we have no turnover. Again, in construction industry, where usually people leave or order increase, the fact that we've maintained our core team has been incredible. But Ross is so good at making sure that our team feels or is heard. I'm on the road talking to the world and raising money, but he is making sure that our product is high quality. So really just having a co-founder who has a very different skill set. So those are the few things that I think, the way we raise money, the way we acquire customers, and my business partner are very unique to the startup, to the previous ones. And those are kind of lessons learned. And some of it is just, I call it luck. Some of it is just, but it's all just, as you know, hard work, traveling like crazy.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
And
well, it's great advice. And you have a really wonderful story and good things going on. What does 2025 have in store? And if you want to throw a little call to action in there, what can folks look forward to? How can they start to get involved?
Yeah. Well, connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm the only Gene Eidelman, by the way, is how it's pronounced, but it's
Eidelman. Okay.
But connect with me on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way. We're launching our next crowdfunding campaign, still at very favorable valuation next week. So by the time this episode airs, they can just go on our website, azureprintedhomes.com, and be involved if they're interested to participate as an investor. We're looking for affiliates. These are people who want to distribute our product. We're looking for customers. Short-term rental is a great way to generate passive income. So on and on. And if people are interested to solve homeless crisis with me, I need those folks as well. So really multiple ways to get involved. So I really appreciate your time in doing this today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to have all those links in the show notes so that our listeners can scroll down and connect with you, start a conversation, or just keep in touch with Azure and see what's going on. Did I hear correctly that you are going to raise another round? Is that going to be a crowdfund?
Yeah, we're starting a campaign on Dealmaker. middle of January, and yeah, we're gonna run it for a short period of time, but we're excited about it. I think it's gonna be real good.
What's the minimum check size on that?
Minimum check size this September round is $1,000.
Okay. Well, for anyone who wants to get involved and support you, I encourage them to head on over to the landing page that you'll have set up for that, and support the
they
company.
can get there through our website. And as you know, I'm very easy to reach. Look, I am. My kids are grown. I'm single, so I have a lot of time, and I really enjoy staying in touch with guys like you, other founders, but also enjoy talking with investors. I run into investors all over the place, from Riyadh to Fresno, and I just love it. I love to stay connected. So I'm very easy to connect with.
Awesome. Well, Gene, thank you so much for all the insights that you've offered, for coming on the show. It's been a great third reunion with you. I'm looking forward to our next one for sure.
Okay, great. Have a great day.
Thank you, Gene. Take care.
Bye-bye.